What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down the weekly timeframes for them. I'm not going to talk specifically about Monday. I'm going to focus more on the bigger trends and talk about something big that's developing on the charts. And what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break into these all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends very, very soon. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, I just want to call out something very important. So, if you're interested in learning about what's going to likely happen early going into next week for like Monday and Tuesday, watch my video coming out for tomorrow where I break down the smaller time frames, such as the hourly and the 4 hour time frame. But this video specifically is going to be about the bigger time frames like the daily and the weekly charts, which will give you more insights about what is the trend telling us about the bigger picture. I want to focus more on that and less on the smaller time frames. So once again, if you're interested in very, very nice short-term projections for Monday and Tuesday that are coming up, right, watch my video for tomorrow. This video is more about like the more medium term, at least a week out. I'm going to break down more insights on that based off the chart. Now, I didn't really want to make a video like this. I wanted to make a video about Elon Musk and what he's been tweeting about, but as of recent, to be honest with everyone, I just haven't been able to see anything worth mentioning, at least on Elon Musk's Twitter page. Most of his tweets are very political. There was very, very little about Tesla, so I didn't see the point in doing that. So it's unfortunate. We'll see if Elon says anything else going into next week. I'm going to give him another week and kind of go over his Twitter again. The reason I do this is because sometimes he tweets some very important things about Tesla, future updates, and things like that, which could be very important. So I like to give you guys some insights, but not this week since I didn't really see much. Now, looking at the chart on Tesla, I just want to call out that on the weekly time frame, the trend is still bearish. Okay, we're still on a downtrend on Tesla. We've been downtrending since we hit 300. It's been making lower highs, lower lows here, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. It is trying to rebound, but now we're going to be watching this resistance at this 200 EMA. So in order for this to reverse, we need to see a change in market structure on the weekly. So this is over a long period of time. The chart is still on a downtrend, so we're going to be watching to see if this ends up being the case. Now, the weekly candlestick looks a little bearish. It does suggest we might come down a little bit, and it's still not looking that great for Tesla, so I want to warn you guys about that. The daily, on the other hand, is it's also looking kind of weak for now, but the daily is showing a slight potential uptrend that could be established off this inverse head and shoulders. So it might come down a little bit and still try to bounce intraday for the short term. Still a possibility. But for the much larger trend on Tesla, the chart is still on a downtrend, still not performing as well as it could have been ever since, especially when this year started. Ever since the year started, Tesla's been really on this downtrend after its like earnings and such came out. So the trend is still bearish. We'll see when we get a trend reversal later on. We have to make higher highs and higher lows. We haven't done that yet. So be very careful on Tesla. We could see a little rejection just for the super short term and also for the overall trend, excuse me. But as a long term investor, I'm excited. Now, there's all this fear coming out that, Rivian is going to see no growth. Ford is cutting prices. Ford is looking at more declines in their EV sales. GM is saying the same thing. Everyone is panicking. It's the end of the world. Tesla's going to crash. Let Tesla drop. Let the fear kick in. And this is the opportunity to start buying up these shares. I think anything under 200 is a steal. And the closer we get to 100, the bigger of a steal it is because the long term is still bright. And I see this thing still squeezing to the thousands. I'm still a big bull on Tesla. Now, when you look at the monthly charts, although Tesla has been declining for many months, overall, the chart is still bullish on the monthly. So this tells us that, look, it might come down more. It might drop a little bit more. That's still a possibility for later on this year. But the overall trend is still bullish. The much, much, much long term, bigger picture for years out is still very bullish. The super long term is still very bullish for Tesla. The monthly is still strong. It's still doing okay. It's not the end of the world. All right. So just to clarify, for the short term, we could see this thing potentially try to drop a bit more than it bounce. For the medium term, Tesla is still looking like it's on a bearish trend. It's because ever since we were at 300, we've been downtrending. Since the year started, we've been downtrending. But the monthly, the really big time frame, the massive time frame, that is still bullish for Tesla. All right, so I hope that's clear. that tells us that like a few years out, 1 year out, Tesla's bullish. It's going to run very hard. A few weeks out, there could be some risks of downside for Tesla, so be careful. A few days out, we could see some sideways price action. That's what the trend is kind of like telling us so far on Tesla. But overall, it's still bullish long term. Do not forget about that. SPY is very strong on the monthly. I'm going to switch over to the weekly though. The weekly is still on a very, very nice rip, but this could be delayed data because we're waiting to see what the reaction is from here. The daily does show a potential rejection coming on SPY. It might reject a little bit, come a little bit lower to like 505 to 506, and we'll have to see what it does. But the daily is still strong. The technicals are still strong on SPY. It's on a very, very strong uptrend. There's no sign of it reversing yet, so it's still quite strong. For something else like Rivian, daily looks kind of weak, weekly as well, looking kind of weak. Looks bearish. The overall trend is still weak amidst declining sales, 0% projected growth, and some not so good earnings if you want to go down that route. So it has more to do with guidance and less to do with just earnings. Anyways, it's bearish. We'll see how well 10 holds. It could still lose this. Still looks very weak. But this could be a big buying opportunity the more it dips. So just watch for that. Just be careful at buying around here. I would just wait, if anything. SoFi is very sideways on the week. It's a very stationary stock. It's a very stationary trend. So I'm not seeing much for it. We might continue to remain stationary before we break out later. ARM, it's on a bullish trend on the weekly. It actually IPO'd not too long ago, and it's still trying to push. So we could see this thing attempt to go a little higher to retest the high of the wick. So it's still strong. How about Super Micro? I know a lot of people are interested in this. The big trend, so it's been on a very strong uptrend overall. The daily does show the possibility of a gap fill, so it is showing some weakness on the daily to come down a bit. It could retrace a little bit, so be careful, especially if we lose 850, 820, and 800. If we lose that, then there's 750 to watch for. But even if this thing comes down to 700, even if it comes down, it's still on a very, very strong uptrend. It's still uptrending. It could retrace a little bit, sure, for the short term, but the medium term is still bullish. It could retrace and still try to bounce. We have to see the market structure change for us to turn bearish. It hasn't done that yet, so we don't know for sure, but it's not necessarily a dead cat in the water yet. You can't make that claim just yet. Palantir, daily looks a little bit weak. It looks bearish on the daily. I think it's going to be testing 21.93 and eventually 19.8. But the weekly looks a little bit weaker. It looks like it's reversing as well. So it's the same thing essentially. A little pullback might be coming to this. How about the Russell? Russell 2000. It is attempting to uptrend just a bit on the weekly. The daily does show, however, that it has been attempting to push, but it's not doesn't have that much momentum, so it's not that strong looking. So it might push a little bit, then come back down. The weekly still is showing some strength though, which is decent, but not a whole lot's going on with it. Apple looks a little bearish on the daily and the weekly. There is a possible inverse head and shoulders that could be forming here, technically speaking. This could be like our left shoulder. This could be like our right shoulder. It's a possibility, but we have to see how it reacts to 180. It is downtrending though on the daily and also on the weekly. On the weekly, it looks a little weak. We're gonna be watching 180 and 178 to see how it reacts to this. It looks kind of weak right now, so it might retrace a little bit more. I do see some downside coming to Apple before it tries to bounce. The trend is still a little weak. The weekly on the QQQ is still strong. It's still very, very strong and bullish. There's no sign of this reversing yet. So the QQQ is different from Apple. Very, very nice uptrend. The daily does show a little pullback coming to about 434, but the trend is still bullish. There's no sign of it changing directions yet. Okay, it's still bullish, still strong. We'll see if this changes directions or not. We do have this gap to fill, so we'll see if we end up losing 430. If we do lose it, there's going to be a risk of it coming close to filling the gap. But overall, it's still on a bullish trend, so we just have to wait and see. It's still favoring bulls a bit more. It might retrace a bit for the short term, but for the medium term, the trend is still bullish unless this changes. Nvda is on an uptrend, but we rejected on the daily. The weekly is still strong, but I think the daily shows us a little retracement could be coming. If we might be testing 750, we'll see if that holds or not. I could see a little retracement coming. The weekly is still strong though, so even if it does retrace, there's no sign of it reversing yet, so it's still on a nice uptrend. Microsoft, it's on an uptrend, but it's losing a little bit momentum, especially as of recent. And I am a little bit fearful because on the daily time frame, watch this, guys. We have a possible head and shoulders forming. This is a left shoulder, a head, and maybe a right shoulder, which suggests we might see some downside. So just be a little bit careful on Microsoft. This could be a sign of a trend reversal, but the weekly does not confirm it yet. We have to wait and see. AMD Could be reversing right here. It has this gap to fill, so watch 171. If we lose that, we could sink more. And then finally, I want to note that on AMD, we're looking a little weaker, not the strongest thus far. Excuse me, guys, I apologize. For the VIX weekly, it's trying to uptrend. Well, I just want to call out that it's been like kind of popping and dropping, popping and dropping. That's why it has this like uptrend. But this thing could, it still looks kind of weak on the weekly. So, this suggests that the market could bounce, but not a guarantee. Sometimes these are very indecisive days and indecisive trends. The VIX, I'd still be very careful with it because it's very manipulated. They're manipulating this because it's used for hedging a lot. So the weekly doesn't really give us much that's that useful. Same thing on the dollar. It's still kind of like indecisive. So these are not that useful for now. I think it's better to look at the more short term. Coinbase, I could see a possible cup and handle, but I'm not going to count on that. I'm going to be looking for 166. It's actually just under that. If we do think a little bit more, 160 could be coming. The trend on the weekly is still a bullish trend. It's still uptrending, but the short term does show the possibility of it coming down a bit. The medium term does show an uptrend, so it might drop short term, but bounce medium term. Google, it's very much the same thing. It's on an uptrend on the weekly. It's slowly uptrending, but be a little bit careful because the PPO is showing lots of sideways price action, might be a little bit stationary in this range, and then maybe break out later. So watch for that. If we lose 140, we could retrace a bit, even if we are on an uptrend. So just be a little bit careful. Amazon is still strong on the weekly. It's also strong on the daily. Can it reject? Well, we're at 175 resistance, so it is possible. Also, there's 178 and 180. It's on an uptrend. The daily still looks strong, so it could push a little bit more. There's no sign of it reversing it, but watch 175 as the resistance. We'll see if it rejects or not. It does still look bullish to me. There's no sign of a reversal yet. So it looks relatively strong. Meta on the daily looks like it's going to test 478 and even lower levels. Looks a little bit more bearish. On the weekly, I just want to mention that we still look bullish on Meta on the weekly for now. The overall trend is still favoring bulls, but the short term does show a little pullback that could be coming. So I just want to call that out. All right, guys. So hopefully this analysis was helpful for the bigger trends. Some stocks look a little bearish. Other stocks look like they're bullish. Tesla is still on a little bit of a downtrend on the weekly time frame. It is attempting to bounce off of this 175 area, and we'll have to see how well it does from here. But I do anticipate a little bit more short term downside. The medium term, it's a little bit short term, it might drop a little bit, then bounce, of course. For the medium term, we're on a downtrend right now on Tesla, so there could be a risk of a little bit more downside. We could bounce and come back down later, so be careful with that. But the long term, the super, super long term, for many years out, for 1 year out, even 1 year out, even, excuse me, guys, it's still bullish for Tesla. It's still bullish overall. So long term, a year out, I'm bullish. Medium term looks not the strongest, a little bit weak, but short term, we're seeing some weakness, but there is some potential for it to bounce. All right, I hope that's as clear as possible. That's what the trends are showing us for Tesla. I'm still a big bull long term. Don't let this get the best of you. And with that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. Hopefully, this analysis video was helpful. And I'll be back with a more detailed analysis for like the really short term in my video for tomorrow. So be patient, guys. Wait for it to come out. Thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.